When I was 15 years old, I had a visitation. That's the best way I can describe it. I was stubbornly fighting receiving the Lord. A friend of mine was trying to win me over to Christ, and it just wasn't working. And I remember just being in the back seat of a car. This is a short version of that story. And we were driving back from a plus 3-hour journey, my brother, my sister, my mom, and my dad. And we were all fast asleep. It was probably 1 in the morning. And I just remember hearing a loud voice in my ear. It wasn't in my spirit. It was in my ear. And it called my name, Tomi. Immediately, my first thought was my dad was calling me to ask about my studies, because many of us are raised by Nigerian parents in this room or watching across radios. You know, when your parents are calling you, is to ask you, how are your studies? And so I just pretended to be asleep in the car and hoped he wouldn't call me. And he called me again. I heard the voice, Tomi. This time I heard the voice. A big flash came over my eyes. I sit up, I open my eyes, I look around. Everyone's asleep but my dad. I said, Dad, what's going on? He said, what are you talking about? I said, you called me. And he said, I didn't call you. And so I woke everybody up because I thought I was losing my mind, and I said, which one of you called me? I mean, it wasn't a spirit call, it was a call in my ear. And I woke everybody up. I said, who called me? And everybody looked at me at this point like I was crazy. Then I heard the voice of God come to me again, and he said, Tomi, today the enemy planned for you to die, but I'm going to save your life and I'm going to call you into the ministry. Again, no terminology for what ministry meant, but I heard the voice of God tell everyone to put their seatbelts on. So I woke everybody up, told them to put their seatbelts on. So everybody one by one did it. Halfway through this journey, the voice of God came back to me again, and it was clear in my ear. It wasn't in my heart. This was loud. It was as loud as the person sitting next to me. And he said, now, son, yell, watch out. And I just yelled at the top of my lungs, watch out. The moment I yelled it, my dad was so startled by my shout, he switched lanes from the outer lane to the middle lane. The moment he switched lanes, 5 cars in front of us crashed into each other, including a police car. Missed it by a fraction of a second. So they pulled over the car and they said, how did you know that? And my only answer was, God told me. And so it was in the back seat of a car I gave my life to Christ. And since then, I just kind of said, I hear God. I didn't have a terminology for it, didn't have the word for it. I thought every Christian heard the voice of God. I thought the two were synonymous, and so should they be. But it was my biggest frustration. I came to church and I found out that not everybody heard the voice of God. I thought it was a thing everybody understood. And then when I began to study the Bible, maybe when I was 16 years old, I think ministry blew up very quickly because people were attracted to these young guys who were prophesying. When I understood the terminology for it, I started to share it with the belief that, the book of John 10:27 says, my sheep hear my voice.
Right.
And so from that foundation, I believe every New Testament born-again believer should hear the voice of God. What was a ceiling for the Old Testament church is a floor for the New Testament church.
Wow, so good.